This is episode 18 with Hannah Hernandez, a top therapist in the Temecula, California area. Welcome to the Bernie and Marley podcast. My name is Bernie and I do this podcast with my co-host Marley, and this is the podcast where we deliver value, laughter, and relatable content to the listener. Now put that phone in your pocket and phase out with the conversation we're about to have. Rick Warren said, "Worry is a waste of energy. It can't change the past. It can't control the future. It only makes today miserable." You see, the key to life is finding balance, finding the serenity, finding true happiness within yourself. It is not looking through a crystal ball trying to see what your life will be. It is living your life and letting things happen as they happen. Now, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into it. Here's the one and only Hannah Hernandez. So what's the big stigma on mental health? Like, when I used to hear about mental health, any kind of anxiety, I used to think like you're crazy. That was my thought on mental health, people. But now that I'm more educated, I'm like, I think I have those mental health issues.
Right. And most of us do. I think what I always tell my clients is we're all on a continuum. Like, there's not, oh, this person's crazy, but I'm good. Mm-hmm. It's, I walk around with, out of 10, my anxiety is usually at a 3. And most people do. They just don't even realize that, if they're picking at their nails or bouncing their leg up and down, that those are anxiety symptoms, for example. So people don't realize that they experience these things.
So would you say it's in all of us? It's inside of all of us?
Absolutely. We're not... the best representation I ever heard of this was the fight or flight. We've all heard of that, right? The fight, flight, or freeze.
Can you explain to us? Because I have not heard of it.
Oh, okay. So fight or flight is this response with your nervous system where you have a situation and your body's response physically is fight, flight, or freeze. So either you go into attack mode with this situation, or you're going to run. So that's where we get people that, they're going to run from their responsibilities or their problems. We see that all the time. We also see people, attacking and being really forward with their issues. And then we have people that are totally stagnant. They're like, I can't do anything. Oh my goodness. Like, where is my life going? And so fight, or freeze. These things, originally helped people, cavemen, for example, run away from, a massive mammoth that was going to attack or whatever have you. We don't have these physical things chasing us anymore. What we have are internal stressors, like, how am I doing at my job? Does so-and-so like me? From being a child on up, our stressors are very different, but our nervous system reacts in the same way.
Okay, I'm just curious, going back to the question, would you say 100% sure anxiety is in all of us?
Absolutely.
Okay, I remember my psychology class in community college, this lady came in to present. She said, raise your hand. She first started the presentation. Raise your hand if you have an anxiety or do you have mental health issues. Nobody raised their hand.
Right.
Okay, she gave her presentation, explained every type of anxiety. At the end of the class, at the end of the presentation, she was okay, close your eyes. Don't look around. Do not open your eyes. Raise your hand if you have mental health issues now. I raised my hand.
You actually understood what she was saying then. A lot of people, and that's where the stigma part comes in. We think of intense psychiatric disorders where people really can't even live on their own. For example, really unmanaged schizophrenia or something, where someone's reality is distorted, or someone's incredibly depressed and doesn't get out all day. Those are so easy to identify. As a community, we can look around and, the homeless, for example, they're out there talking to themselves. And most people are homeless because they have some kind of psychiatric disorder. And so those are easy. And because we don't want to identify as being similar to that, we're going to, put up this wall like, whoa, no, that's crazy. That's not me.
The one where you said you're too scared to go outside. What does that one fall under? Which kind of anxiety is that?
There's a lot of different anxieties, disorders in the DSM-5. That would be agoraphobia. That's, just a fear of intense fear of social interactions, which basically keeps people inside their homes.
Isn't that the social anxiety disorder? Is that referred to it?
It's called, the technical term, agoraphobia.
Okay.
But really, I think all these disorders have in common is the high anxiety associated. For example, you've got OCD, obsessive compulsive, which is actually an anxiety disorder. In the end, people really don't think of, okay, like they're just touching things and they're counting and they need things a certain way, or they're stressed out. People don't realize that's anxiety disorder. Things like PTSD, in the end, it's trauma initiated, but it's anxiety disorder at its core.
I want to touch on social anxiety disorder. That's the fear of being judged by other people. Basically,
you're afraid of what people are thinking. You're afraid of how they're going to judge you. You're afraid of having to interact with them, because what if you do something wrong? I mean, there's all kinds of anxieties related to that.
Do you think it's about them trying to fit in? They don't want to do mistakes just to fit into a certain group?
I think we all have that to an extent. That could be part of it, as far as being magnified by that. That particular anxiety disorder is just an intense fear of absolutely everything, though, when it comes to being social. So not only the interactions, but like, what if something happened? I mean, people with these anxiety disorders, their thoughts can go on, and basically they're worrying about a hypothetical situation that they've created in their heads, and predicting the future, which is why CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy, is really helpful for a lot of anxiety disorders, because it looks at those thought patterns specifically. But being that anxious is really hard to treat sometimes.
Okay. The one I feel like it's in all of us for sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like I'm 99.9% on that one. It's called generalized anxiety disorder. This is the one where you just worry about people don't know how to shut things off.
Right.
And I'm just like, how do they do that? It's like, things are important. I can't just shut it off. Like, I gotta think about it, prepare for it. Like people taking exams. As soon as they walk out of the study room, shut it off.
Right.
And they go somewhere else. And then myself, I can't shut it off like that.
Right.
So I'm just like, is that a skill or?
One thing that I've realized, especially since I've had children, is as humans, we're not teaching our kids how to cope, right? So, or generally, it's something I'm trying to institute with my children now after realizing that. But as a whole, we're not even equipped usually, because we haven't been taught. So therefore, we're not teaching our kids. So, if you happen to be able to just kind of be like, okay, well, test is over, let's move on. That's an excellent personality trait. But most of us aren't like that. I'd be like, okay, well, I hope I did well. I wonder what I got on the score. I wonder when they're going to hand out the test. One thing, and there are a lot of ways to kind of work on that. For example, something I tell a lot of my clients is schedule your time to worry, your time for anxiety. So maybe every time you start realizing, because even just catching yourself ruminating, we call it, but thinking kind of obsessively about something, we don't even realize we're doing it. So if we realize it, that's the first part. Oh, okay, I've been thinking about this for the last 10 minutes. It needs to stop. That's the first part. Especially
things it's not under control. Like, why am I thinking about it? I can't, no matter how hard I think about it, there's nothing I can do about it.
Exactly. And if we schedule that, say, okay, 8 to 8:30 p.m., I get to worry about whatever I want. It's going to be less appealing. And I think in our heads, we're able to realize when we're ruminating about these things when we're obsessively thinking about things because we know we have it scheduled for later.
Social anxiety disorder, I just feel like that one, I can use sometimes positivity on it. When people give me bad comments. Like I have this guy that tells me, hey, I need you to be straight up with me, dude, like about the podcast. Like you got to be dead on. He'll tell me, honestly, Bernie, the music is getting old. You got to change it up. You got to come out stronger. You're coming out weaker.
Right.
At first, it affected me. I'm like, what the heck? But I'm like, you know what? I had a feeling that I had to change those things.
One of those things that, and I tell my kids this, I tell my clients this, I tell anybody that I've ever had work under me this is, you know, you look at what my business is as a private practice. It's called practice for a reason. You go to a doctor's practice. It's called practice for a reason. We're all actively learning more, and there's no point at which you stop growing. That's how I view these things. You know, so if we are looking for how we can improve, that's a good thing. You know, failure is one of the first steps towards greatness. Yeah,
that's true. So what is someone like with these anxieties, these disorders, how can they help themselves from not having it?
I don't think it ever goes away. It's how you manage it. I mean, there's a lot of medications, especially for anxiety, though. The medications tend to be really addictive. But with the anxiety disorders, there's a sense of, okay, how do I stay in the moment? One of my favorite things is using DBT and mindfulness to really be grounded. So, like feeling your clothes against your skin, using your five senses. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you feeling? And distracting yourself from everything else but your present moment, physically, mentally, what's happening here and now.
One interesting one I ran into was the obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. They made a show about that on TV. I can't remember the show, but I remember they'll have dogs in training.
Yeah, animals can be really helpful with especially anxiety disorders.
The way I saw it was people are just, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but they fall on the floor and start shaking. Is that
not always? I mean, if they're having like an anxiety attack because of their particular anxiety disorder, that could be something that happens. Absolutely. A lot of it is there's this compulsion, so they feel the need to do something. For example, think about how we look at our phones, right? Like, we're gonna have to look at our phone. We have to look at my phone. Did I get you got a text message, so you have a compulsion to look at your phone to see what that is. If you don't look, you're going to feel some kind of anxiety. We don't always recognize that feeling as anxiety, but it's anxiety. And that's the same type of thing. They have this compulsion, except their compulsion is to, you know, check that the door's locked 8 times. And if they only check it 7, they're going to feel that anxiety.
Yeah, I seen that there was a guy that he won't leave his house until he steps on each step of his stairs. Like, I gotta make sure I can't miss one. If I miss one, I gotta go back and do it again. So these anxieties, I feel like social media is actually feeling these. Like
I would say so.
Social media is fueling it more. People are more scared. They want recognition. You know, when you post, like, you go to the gym, like, if you don't post it, you were never there.
Right. I feel like if my Fitbit watch doesn't track my exercise, what's the point?
Exactly.
I can't see statistics. You know, it goes back to our last conversation where we were talking about how social media affects people, and the less interaction that people are having face to face. You know, when we have to have that now, it is more anxiety provoking. People aren't learning how to interact quite as easily or as well as we once were. Yeah. Going back to OCD, I know we're jumping back and forth here. Okay. So people have this stigma of, like, you walk into the room and everything's unorganized. Like, oh, you're so OCD. But they don't know the true meaning of OCD. Right. There's a huge difference between I like my things neat and clean to I need to wash my hands, and they're bleeding and they're chafed, but I have to wash my hands because if I don't, I'm going to just have this overwhelming sense of urgency and doom, and my nervous system is going to be in overdrive, and I'm going to feel the adrenaline, and it's horrible. Like I say, my son is OCD. He's 9. The kids had their rooms super clean about 4 weeks ago. His is still spotless. My daughter's is a total mess, and I call him my little OCD kid because he has to have certain textures. He can't have his food touch on his plate, and there's very specific ways he has to live, but that's not a diagnosable as far as an anxiety disorder.
So it'll be another OCD. What's the worst case you heard of?
I feel really bad for the people that do the hand washing. I think that's one of the most horrible physical, because then they have this physical pain that goes along with it, but they're causing that physical pain and they keep doing it.
I seen that one. They have to wash their hands, what is it, 4 to 5 times?
It just depends on the person, and they're specific. Everybody has like a different compulsion, if you will.
What about the one where it says knock on wood? That's
more of like a old wives' tales, and it's similar though. It could help you sort of understand, okay, if I don't knock on wood, and then you get some kind of anxiety because you actually believe that, or what if? That's a kind of gives you in the perspective of what they're feeling times 1,000.
Yeah, there's people that knock on wood, and they look around, there's no wood, like, where's the wood at?
Right.
Just knock on it really quick. Another one that was very interesting to me was PTSD.
Yes.
That one, I thought it just affected people in the Army.
Right, right.
Like in the Marines, the Army, the Navy. But it was like, people got into accidents, people dying. It's just traumatizing for them. Even
going through medical, maybe you have cancer, you can get PTSD from that. You can get PTSD from, being sexually assaulted, or maybe there's a natural disaster, and, a massive earthquake, and you have PTSD from that. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's really based on this chronic set of symptoms, which are all anxiety related, that has been going on for quite some time.
Do you think not social media, the news also feels that on PTSD? They're showing all the wars going on and using scare tactics.
I have to say that I haven't really thought about that, but I would say it probably doesn't help. In cognitive behavioral therapy, we'll really break down, okay, so, has this really happened? Has this happened to you? Has it ever happened again? Trying to find the fallacies or the kind of misinterpreted thinking patterns and assumptions about somebody's anxieties or whatever. And it's harder to do when, I saw that 7 people were stabbed to death wherever last night on the news. It's a little more difficult to be like, that doesn't really happen all the time.
Yeah. What about people like cars, like someone having a heart attack behind the wheel and running people over on the sidewalk?
Right.
And people are like, wow, I ride my bike through there. And then they're just now scared to ride their bikes on that street.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Even, I know I keep bringing up my kids, but it's weird because they actually came to me and they were like, did you know that kids are dying everywhere? And I was like, wait, what? And they had, I guess, watched the news or something at their dad's. And it was like some kid had gotten killed. Another kid had drowned. And they were just like, okay, kids are dying everywhere. Like all of a sudden it was catastrophized in their mind. And I thought that was really interesting. I had to explain, the news doesn't really show the good stuff. It picks all the negative stories and tells us, as opposed to puppies are being born too.
Yeah, that's true. So what happened behind my backyard last week, this car flipped over. 2 cars.
Oh, no.
One of them died. And I'm like, dude, that's where I ride my bike all the time. I was like, what if I was riding my bike and I got hit? We would have been done. Yeah. So right now I'm terrified of riding my bike on that street now.
Or any street. It just really makes you think about Like, this could happen to anyone at any time. And I think that's part of the generalized anxiety, is that anything could happen at any time. And if you sit in that, you're going to be stressed out and unable to really fully engage in your life.
Yeah, I feel like it has a lot to do with the news and social media. Just people constantly reporting people dying here, people dying there, people dying doing this, dying on roller coasters. Kind of like the movie The Final Destination. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah.
Where they die in the roller coaster.
Yes.
Everybody always refers that like, oh, look, Final Destination moment. Yeah. And it just puts fear on everybody. It's like, oh, don't say that.
Right. You're like, don't jinx it. I think we're all, even if we say we're not, we're like the tiniest bit, what is the word? Superstitious. There we go.
So someone looking into getting help on this, any therapy, because they think therapy is like, no, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to go get therapy. How can you change their thought on that?
That's something that I'm actually really passionate about, and me and my partner really want to decrease this stigma on mental health, because it affects all of us. And quite honestly, even, you know, myself as a therapist, as a professional woman that's successful and has, you know, I guess I'm moderately stable at the very least. I could use therapy. You know, we all really could just, there's something special about talking to somebody that is truly non-judgmental. They are not bringing judgment into it, which kind of goes back to what you were saying about all this judgment that we're experiencing all the time, or fear of judgment that we could experience all the time. And talking to somebody, getting an educated, different perspective. Usually therapists aren't telling you what to do. That's not our job. Our job isn't to just give advice. It's to lead you to where you figure out your own advice. And it can be really powerful, whether you're in a relationship that's unsatisfying, or you are having these anxieties, you know, whatever it is about. Maybe it's about your job or your kids or your partner. We all could use a person to lean on, but also we could all have somebody kind of keeping us in check as far as actively working on making these things better and feeling better about these things. So coping skills, like mindfulness or meditation.
So are you like telling them, okay, what did you do this week to make yourself better? What did you change?
Absolutely. We give homework. We do check-ins. It's, you know, how are you sleeping, even really, how are you eating, everything. We take the whole mind, body, spirit into account when we're with somebody. And we start where the client's at. If you're not into mindfulness and you feel like it's hokey, I'm not going to assign you mindfulness exercises. We're going to work where you're at.
What would be a mindfulness exercise?
So something I do with my kids every single night is deep breathing, where they're really thinking about, you know, breathing in all the good, breathing out all the negative. And then while they're doing that, it's called a guided meditation, where a progressive muscle relaxation. And I'll have them, okay, scrunch up your toes and your feet. Now release. Feel how relaxed that feels. Now scrunch up your legs. Feel how tight it is. Now release and relax. And you go through your entire body, bottom to top. You scrunch up your face. Now relax. Meanwhile, you know, reiterating this deep breathing. And it's having all the focus on the present, on the now, on your body, on your physical sensations. Breathing in the good and the bad is really focusing on, and out the bad, I should say, is focusing all your energy on just the present. We're just doing it right now. And that kind of thing, once you actually get good at it, you can use it in stressful situations. My son the other day was saying that he was at school and he was feeling like he was going to throw up. He was really sick. He didn't feel good. And so he started doing that. And I was like, wow, like mom score. I felt really proud about that.
What normal kid does that?
Right.
I never did that, but I know it can work.
No,
because I didn't know
sure.
about it. If I knew about it, I would have done it.
Absolutely. Even the deep breathing, I've always, since they were babies, okay, blow out the birthday candles, because kids don't get it. Like, why would I deep breathe? You tell a 2-year-old that, they're going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to, kick and scream still. That's okay, though.
They're doing things that adults do nowadays with their work life. They're so stressed out that like they have to step aside and just take a breather.
Yeah.
Relax. Reset the mind.
And I think it's really healthy to teach our kids that, but to teach the adults too. I mean, shoot, I still struggle with implementing it in my life consistently.
You know what I thought of? A good business idea?
What's that?
Going to companies and teach salespeople what you do. Mm-hmm. I think that'd be very helpful.
I think, they've got this thing called organizational psychology where it's usually more of a consultant and looking at the company as a whole and the culture and how to make that better. But to implement these would be part of that. Okay, so how are you going to keep your company's mental health good? There's so many studies now on how you treat your employees is primary to how they're going to perform. That's why Google, they have their sleep pods and stuff.
Yeah.
It works. Like, they're obviously flourishing.
Wow. They say we're getting mentally weaker now.
I don't know if
is
that's
that the
true.
way our I don't think it's true either.
I think we're just more honest. I mean, you have World War II vets and Vietnam vets that came home and they never said anything. And when we say that, I think, 23 or 27 vets a day commit suicide, a good portion of that is these elderly vets. They've never addressed their issues.
Is it the whole masculinity thing?
That comes into play huge.
Because they're like, they hold everything in. I'm training myself not to hold everything in because I used to hold all my emotions to myself and it used to just stress me out. I feel the stress in my back. And I'll never talk about it with my fiance. But now I mention it to her. I'm more open with her. Like, hey, I feel this way. Like, can we change things a little bit, please? Like, meet me in the middle.
Right.
And it feels good to me. But other people, if they see me talking like that, they're like, dude, what are you, a girl or what?
Right. There's still this, what I would call it is toxic masculinity. That's the best phrase I've seen to describe it. Just this expectation that, we're 1950s males and we're strong and we run the business and we're the man of the house and we take care of everybody. And I think nowadays women are absolutely able and willing. They've always been able and willing, I think, but it's come to the forefront where they are doing these things and contributing, and it's a partnership. Whether it's 2 males or 2 females or a male and a female, whatever it is, we have partnership in our relationships. And I think that's a very positive way to go about things, but it's also, okay, I'm not in this alone. And sharing any fears you have with your partner not only could improve the situation because of just communicating it and making you feel better, but improve the situation because maybe your partner has a different way to look at it.
Or also like family members, old uncles we have, they throw comments in there. Like, why is your wife a stay-at-home mom? Like, you should be the one working your ass off. But I would say it's not like before. Things are not as affordable as they were before. We got things added now to our bills. There wasn't cable back then. So that's another bill added to us. There wasn't cell phones or internet,
Well, even just housing. I mean, my goodness, I think my parents bought their first house for like $57,000. And it was a legit little nice house. That would be incredibly impossible nowadays. And even considering inflation, we're not wages have not, increased as much as inflation has. So quite literally, we wouldn't be able to afford that house now, even if it had risen in price.
Yeah, when I moved out here to the Inland Empire in California, I remember looking at signs, houses in the high 200s. Now it's houses in the high 400s. I'm like, what?
Yep.
It's only been a few years since I lived here.
Right. You're like, I'm not making more. What's going on?
This masculinity, I want to touch on it because it's something us men. Would you think it's just man or woman?
I think that, women don't have the the toxic masculinity themselves generally. However, they've internalized these social norms just as much as any male has. So even if they're, gung-ho, like feminist, like, absolutely not, I can do anything a man can. And I don't want that to come off wrong because I'm a major feminist myself. But, they're still actually fighting against what their feelings are because they've grown up being taught that. No matter how their parents taught them, socially, it's still an accepted norm to an extent.
What would you say to the man holding on this, saying, I'm macho man, I can do everything, my wife doesn't have to do anything, I'll take care of it. But deep down, they know they need help. Like, I need to express my feelings to someone. I need my wife to work. Like, I can't hold this anymore. What would you say to them?
How is this working for you? Like, where has this gotten you? If we are not happy with where we're at, then something needs to change. One of the old addiction sayings is, if you keep doing something, or the definition of insanity is you keep doing something over and over, expecting a different result. If you want to be more at peace or, be thriving in your life, then you need to look at how you can change things.
It just seems like it's hard for them because they're going to be judged by others. So like, oh, what happened? I thought you, I can handle everything. My wife doesn't have to work. Like, what happened? Or the fear of people talking behind their back. It's like people are always going to say something about you no matter what. If everybody likes you, I always feel like something is wrong with you personally. Like, right. How did you get everybody to like you? There's no way, dude.
You're not being your genuine self.
Yeah, like you're being too many personalities to make the other person happy. You're not being yourself.
People will often say things. It's a temporary reaction. Just whether it's just like in fun jostling somebody or it's trying to hurt them, which I think usually it's probably just more in fun, if anything. And then they're going to go home and be like, dang, I wish I wasn't working 12 hours tonight. Like, yeah,
I remember I used to be on the macho side. Like, nah, don't work. I used to tell my wife, don't worry, you don't have to work. And I'll bring it up to their family. No, she doesn't have to work. It's fine. Deep down, I was hurting.
Right.
I was like, man, I'm tired of being tired. I've come home, I can't enjoy things.
Right.
Nothing. And I didn't want to talk to her about it. Like, Bernie, do you need to get a job? You could get another job. Like, you don't have to be doing all this by yourself. Like, no, I got it.
Right.
It went on for years, but it was just building up, and it was building more stress. And then,
well, it hurts the relationship then, and it hurts you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not happy. You're not thriving. You're not even fully present in your own life. You end up just going through the motions.
Yeah. So I did the thing like I felt like ashamed of, like, I felt like a loser. Like, I failed you. But I'm like, hey, I need help. Can you get a job? Or, because I'm tired of doing this job right here. Yeah.
And if we really were to be able to address this, I mean, you look at the toys for kids and how buff all the action figures are.
Oh, yeah. Even in wrestling, have you seen the WWF?
Yes.
Have you ever seen anybody normal?
Oh, for sure, no.
But I do picture myself running into the ring sometimes with a theme song in the background.
Yeah, I think every guy does. The action figures, I saw this really interesting article, and it showed pictures of how they used to actually look like humans. They were much more similar to an average male body.
I gotta see that because I have not seen.
They keep increasing that over time. More muscular, wider, bigger, and more abs, whatever have you. And it just really shows how we are perpetuating this with our children, and they're gonna grow up and have the same thing.
Wow, same thing goes for girl dolls, and like, hey, this is how you're supposed to look, like a model, flat stomach. Pretty much everything a Barbie doll shows.
Well, there's been articles too where Barbie, like, she would physically be unable to even stand with her proportions if it was a human person. So
imagine trying to keep it up like that.
Right.
Wow. But they're pushing more towards like overweight people.
There's been a lot of body positivity. There's been a whole movement behind that. And I think it's really about, being happy with where you're at. So whether you're a size 16 or a size 2, just being happy with who you are as a person. You might have goals that you want to meet, health-wise or body-wise aside from that. But really just living in the moment and saying, I'm okay who I am. This doesn't define me completely. And I'm happy with who I am.
Yeah. So, well, when you bring that up in public, like on the internet, people still body shame you.
Oh, for
and
sure.
it's like guys, let's just say, for example, guys that they'll say those comments and it's a girl they can't even get.
Right.
It's like, look at your wife, dude. Like, why are you body shaming other people?
Well, that's, I think part of it, though, is who are we to judge anybody? We've all got that one thing about us that really sucks, right? Or something, maybe it doesn't suck, but we need to improve on it. I sure as heck know I do. And it just because you have a body that you've worked really hard, that's great. Like, congratulations. I commend anyone that works that hard on their body. Maybe I choose to have ice cream occasionally, and I really like ice cream. It's my favorite food group. So having that ice cream and working out and being healthy are important to me. Enjoying time with my family is really important to me. And so sometimes I don't get to work out as long as I'd hoped, but that's important to me. Just being well-rounded and, like I said, being happy with who you are at this moment.
I feel like a lot of people can be more happy with themselves if it wasn't for social media. And I know you guys keep thinking, like, why is he keep going by social media? Because I strongly believe social media has fueled completely, like, the person we thought we're supposed to be. We're being fake on the internet.
No, for sure. I mean, we talked about this before, too, but it's one of those things where people will Photoshop themselves to where they don't even look like a human anymore. And, so we're trying to live up to these standards that aren't even actual people standards. It doesn't make sense. And we all feel that way.
You ever had any cases of people, like, they just don't like who they are, they don't like the way they look?
Oh, I would say a real good portion of my clients underneath it, they don't like how they talk, they don't like how they look, maybe they hate the way they walk. I mean, even their gait is something that's a problem. Really?
But do they ever overcome it? Do they ever just say, screw it, I am who I am, you're gonna judge me, go for it?
Yeah. I mean, it's really, you have to change your perspective. You have to be active in change. So, change doesn't passively come. You can't show up to therapy and be like, okay, well, I'm showing up,
I know, that's what to me, that's the way it seems. Like, okay, I'm gonna get fixed here. But, okay, sorry, can you repeat the whole process again of the therapy? So you come in here, you just pretty much giving them a picture of what's wrong with you?
What happens, so they don't hand out, like, magic wands in therapy training, for example. Okay. So we have to really figure out that person. And, I mean, we're looking at body language, their tone of voice. We're looking at the words they choose to define their situations and themselves. And we're getting a picture of who this person is. And a lot of it is just listening. It's just reflecting back to them what they're saying. Sometimes it sounds a lot different when someone else says what you just said. It creates maybe that's not the healthiest thing to say.
Oh, okay. So I would think therapy would be different than talking to a friend, because a friend will tell you what to do, right?
Well, and in conversation, a lot of the times there's a back and forth banter, and I know females are probably a little more on this aspect of things, but we always want to, like, jump in, and then that's acceptable as a female conversation. Oh yeah, because I had this happen, and then you go back to the conversation. It's fluid. Therapists are listening to you. This is about you. They're not saying, okay, well, in my experience, I did X, Y, and Z, and then this happened, and then this happened. We might share tidbits here and there if they're helpful to the client, but we are here for them and only them.
I want to give another great example when it comes to abusive relationships. When the man hits the woman, right off the bat, well, just leave them. But from what I've looked into, the videos I've seen is like, it's not, you just can't leave because if you leave, what happens? You guys have kids together. What's going to happen to the kids? He's going to try to hurt them. Is he going to try to hurt me?
Usually in abusive situations, the highest dangerous period is when a woman leaves, or a male, if it happens both ways, but usually it's females. That most dangerous. I mean, you really need to make a plan. But also, it takes women an average, I believe 7 times was the last number I saw, to leave for good. That means there's been 6 other times that they left, but they came back.
Wow. It's crazy because it's real. It's happening to a lot of people. And then they come out and pretend everything's fine. Everybody looks at them and is like, oh, they're a good, nice couple. But behind doors, it's a whole different story. Okay, so like for example, the first week of therapy, what does a person expect? It's just examining them.
I wouldn't call it examining. That sounds scary. It's just talking. Tell me about yourself. Tell me where you came from, how you grew up. Tell me about your parents. Tell me, did you ever have any, medical issues, or do you see a doctor regularly? Do you take care of your health? Tell me about any family history of suicide or addiction or mental health. Really, it's really a conversation. And I hope that, and I think most therapists are able to do that, where it doesn't feel scary because you're just talking to somebody. And if you've made the decision to reach out already, you're probably ready to talk.
What strong message do you have to the person that's still like, no, I don't need therapy. I can't talk about it with my family. If I tell them, they're going to think I'm weird, they think I'm crazy.
They might, but if you want to live in, a world where you can't fully be yourself because you can't get over certain things, you can't deal with certain issues because you need help and you're afraid to reach out, kind of what's the point? I mean, do you? I tell everybody this: live your life, be an active participant in your own life. It's yours.
What is one thing you want to tell the audience? What's the message you want to deliver?
We've all got issues. We're all on that continuum of mental health, whether, you tend towards depression or anxiety or something. Nobody's been completely untouched by this. There's a lot of, cultures, communities, males, for example, or the African American community, for example, do not seek therapy as much as, white females. But it's there to help everybody, and therapists are non-judgmental. They will not judge you. It's their job. It's I think one of the first things we have on our website. Like, we're not here to judge you. We're here to help, and yes, you're paying somebody to help, but that's what you go to the doctor for. If you had diabetes, you would never feel bad about having to manage that through a doctor's care. And it's a similar representation for mental health. You shouldn't have to feel bad about managing your mental health so you can live your best life.
Where can people reach you?
So you can check out our website. It's thriveforlifetherapy.com. We are on social media, Thrive for Life Therapy, in Facebook and on Instagram. And we take phone calls. My number is 951-223-5068. We would be happy to do just a phone consultation just to make people a little more comfortable with the whole situation before they actually come in. And, just knowing somebody or hearing their voice sometimes is really helpful.
Now that was a very strong conversation we just had. Many of us just don't like to talk to anybody about our issues with our partner or even with our close friends and family because you feel you'll be judged and made fun of. And it just keeps building up more and more until you just have that big meltdown. The whole point of this episode was to acknowledge your emotions, understand what is going on, understand your anxiety, and learn to control yourself. Deep breathing helps a lot. Like what Hannah said, apparently we can't get rid of it, but we can learn to control it. If you would like to contact Hannah Hernandez, you can check her website out, thriveforlifetherapy.com. She services Temecula, California area. Her number and her website will be on the show notes down below. Until then, have a good one, guys.